Hello everyone, back again with another questionable video. This time we're going to be talking about the human soul, or just souls in general. And what are they? That's really the question that I'd like to raise to our attention. Simply to raise human consciousness so that we can actually see what we are, who we are. Are we the universe? Are we flesh and bones? Or, are we just simply all energy? That's what it seems to be, right? Because when we look around, right now in this picture even, you can see a plant in the background, a clock. You can see a wall. The wall, if you turn it like horizontally, it becomes a 4. And what bit of that clock is a clock? You say, oh, that's made of the hands, and this is the frame, and this is all made of wood. But it's not made of wood. It actually is wood, isn't it? It is wood, and wood isn't made of carbon. It is carbon. Carbon isn't made of atoms. It is atoms. Atoms aren't made of energy. It is energy. Everything that you've looked at ever. I mean, let's just use a word for that. Let's call it energy, for want of a better term. And that's really all we've ever looked at. And of course, that can come to us in a number of different ways. Like when we look at something that's red, to another species or another organism, that could actually be a totally different color. There is no kind of like objective reality to it, although you could say there's one objective reality, which is that everything is vibration, everything is mind, and that can be perceived as innumerable different ways. So there's one reality, a billion infinite different ways of experiencing it. The reason I'm talking about that is because we have to apply that also to what we call the soul, because when you think of a soul, you just sort of think of something, right? A noun, an object of sorts. Just like when you look at my hand, which becomes a fist suddenly when it's in a different process, different condition. And I feel like that is really what we're talking about when we think of the soul. So when we think of like a drop in the ocean, there's also the ocean in a drop. Like the microcosm is held within the macrocosm. But if we think of it then in terms of a drop in the ocean, again, it's just the language that affords us this sort of like false notion of separation. Actually, it's still the same thing. Like the quality, not the quantity, but the quality is the same. It's water. You've got a drop of water. The ocean is just lots of different drops of water, right? And so I think this is really what's happening when we understand the first Hermetic principle, or the first natural law. All is mind, universe is mental. And also if we overlay that with this kind of Kabbalistic concept, or the sort of Jewish mysticism idea of the Simsam, right? This contraction in space and time. If you think of the fabric of space and time, which is actually mind itself, and a lot of these films that we watch, sometimes through like people like Stanley Kubrick, Steven Spielberg, these are deep people. These people who are initiated into these occult esoteric orders, who were afforded the luxury of learning about themselves. So self-knowledge. This is, wow, we need to learn about all these things because we learn about geography, we learn about igneous rocks, we learn about pretty much anything and everything mechanistically outside of ourselves. And as a result of that, we've become the blind spot. And the blind spot is the soul, is self-knowledge. And this is what's required for us to actually evolve and transcend this lowly physical plane that we found ourselves on, if not for a few decades. But going back to that Simsam thing, so that's sort of like seen as a contraction, a reduction in vibration. And if you think of the vibrational or the dimensional levels, or which each comprise various different densities, you think of a density could be like a country within a dimension, which could be, say, the continent. And it's just the same as how we think of as the chromatic scale, or think in musical terms, because all we're dealing with really, like I said before, is energy, and that's all vibration. And these bodies, when we look at a person, we say we're speaking to the subject. What you're speaking to is yourself, ultimately, at a similar vibration to you. So your mind is suspended in a certain vibrational condition. So is the matter or the brains of the other person. And that is actually creating another Simsam. So for these dimensional levels, we slowly have this sort of illusion of separation grafted upon us. And it becomes more and more densified, more and more reified, more and more disparate from the actual heavenly domain from which we emerged, which is spirit. Spirit is invisible nature, and nature is visible spirit. We are actually visible spirit, but only to the human lens. Other organisms, like I said before, could see us totally differently. Or if you're actually viewing us from a totally different vibrational level, I'm sure we would actually not even be visible. And this is, we tend to have these things that become ridiculed, like the concept of ghosts and these spooks and spirits, nature spirits, so on and so forth. These are simply, remember, everything is alive, right? Nature isn't dead. We don't live in this, like I've said before, this Cartesian, cold XYZ type reality. It's totally inverted. Like, life is not something we possess, it's something we participate in. And these bodies actually distort this fabric of mind, universal mind that we also call God, omniscient, omnipotent, right? It's everywhere. It's transcendental. It's infinite. And that, of course, we think of as air. But when we look at, films like The Matrix and these Morpheus says to Neo, do you think that's air you're breathing? No, you're breathing in spirit. You're breathing in. You're re-spiriting, remember, respiration. You're re-spiriting. And the reason we're talking about this as sort of foundation is because the soul, essentially, is what I'm saying, is sort of like what we might think of as the ego, which is simply a contracted state of awareness. So the body and the central spinal cord and the central cerebrospinal fluid, all of these conditions of matter are sort of whipping up a sort of storm. If you think of this toroidal donut form around you, right? This is typically the imagery that comes to us when we think of the soul, and then the colours of the rainbow coming through them. This is like a prism. So you like that image from the Pink Floyd album, for example, where you get pure, undifferentiated white light. This could be said to be the pure, holistic mind of unconditioned God. Again, for want of a better term, we need to throw away some of these labels because people have a knee-jerk reaction to them, unfortunately. But this mind is unconditioned until it meets matter, and then it starts dancing upon itself. It starts sort of conditioning itself in various different ways. And if we look at all the species out there, the frogs and the zebras and the alligators and the rats, the birds, the bees, all these, whales, mind is then impressing itself onto matter, and these organisms are adapting based on the thought forms that are required for it to actually survive and evolve. So you see some crazy, I don't know if you've seen any of the Planet Earth and Green Planet, Blue Planet, all that kind of stuff, it's on BBC, David Attenborough, iPlayer, whatever. You look at the diversity and the richness of all these different forms. Some of them are just absolutely, truly remarkable, incredible. Anglerfish, right down in the depths of the sea. Look at how they've evolved, right? This is the soul, which remember is a contraction in space and time, which is asking itself questions. How do we keep this body going? How do we keep life flowing inside this matter to offer a totally different perspective of the universe? And, so then anyway, in a nutshell, that's really what I think of it as. I don't know what you think over there, wherever you are in the world. But, the point is to sort of start, generating a bit of a conversation about these things, because we're not going to really get taught about these things at school. And so therefore, we need to come together and help to raise consciousness. Because remember, newearth.land is all about creating a new society, a post-capitalist world that should decommodify shelter, energy, food and water. Those four things become basic human rights. And, I've tried to be doing this in a number of different ways, but it's very difficult when you don't have the support, you don't have the finances, you don't have anything. It's literally just me just thinking, why don't we liberate ourselves? And the only way that we can actually do that is to first and foremost see that we're actually enslaved. So how do we do that? Well, we have to raise human consciousness first and foremost. So that's why I'm talking about things like this. What is the soul? What is a human being? What is anything? What's going on? We're surrounded by a profound mystery, and yet people live out their lives because this is how we've been programmed. And this is sort of becoming a bit of a digression, unfortunately. And for that reason, the questioning mind has been lost. This childlike awe that we should have in the face of profound mystery is totally eliminated through state school, and we come out as these sort of automaton robots who just work all their lives, so they don't realise that we're not really actually building a better world. We're actually just building a different world, a technological prison of sorts. Anyway, that's going to be a different video. For now, let's just understand the soul as it being. Remember, it's not a thing, it's not a noun. There are no objects in this universe. Everything is ultimately energy, and that energy is consciousness, and that's being imbued into matter, and then that's distorting that in various ways to the point where you could say this table isn't conscious. but it's just that the spirit, the light of mind, can't penetrate the density of that matter. There's no sort of like life flowing through it, unlike with a human being. We have this energy flowing through us and we can animate it, you know. So we are actually the animate and the inanimate in a sense. Anyway, just some food for thought. I've probably missed a load of things that I'd probably like to have said in this video, but that's fine, you know. We've got to try and grow this channel in some way so that we can ultimately liberate ourselves. So do check out newearth.land if you'd like to learn more about that and how you can be a part of a movement that will eradicate poverty, alleviate inequality, and just sort of like help people out, because there's a lot of suffering going on in this world. And really, you know, why don't we just end that? No politician, no government will ever do that. Anyway, I'll talk about that in another video. Thanks very much for watching. Do send me your ideas of what you feel the human soul is. And we can talk more about the Sushumna and the, you know, the Ida and the Pingala, the central nervous system, how effectively this is all distorting the fabric of space and time, giving us this illusion of separation. I am Adam, for example. You know, when all that's happening is I'm having a thought and then I'm saying stuff through my voice and it's all vibration, right? Anyway, just waffling on now. Thanks very much for hanging out with me for 11.5 minutes. I'll see you in the next video.